Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition for the smartphones, specifically not only iOS iPhones, but it's also with Androids as well, for like Samsung, and you pretty much name the rest of it. So, last time, we essentially did manage to traverse into the first world in this game, which appears to be Jumble Jungle, and all in all, that particular world is actually pretty easy, all things considered, despite the fact I do apologize for my tongue twist in the end, folks, because once again, the fly just somehow managed to show up out of nowhere again, so this means about the fact that every time when I see a fly, my tongue just goes all crazy, because I'm still a frog, of course. So, anyway, today for this video is that we're going on to the next world in this game, which appears to be Pirate's Ocean. And as far as I'm aware, this world is actually based off from World 5 from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz, as far as I'm aware. But what's also very weird about this world in particular is that, as you can definitely hear in the background, the music track for this world is actually based off from Monkey Island World from the likes of Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. So, I don't understand why they couldn't be bothered able to actually share the exact same musical track from the likes of Pirate's Ocean as far as the actual world itself is concerned. Well, oh well, no big deal though. At least on the plus side is about the fact that it's nice to be able to hear the familiar music based off from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz at the very least. Specifically, the original version to be more specifically, because I already know for the fact that unlike the HD counterparts for the PS4, Xbox One, as well as Nintendo Switch, and even PC Steam version as well, that several music have been replaced, presumably for licensing reasons. So like, the affected tracks being the forms of Monkey Island, and Jumble Jungle, and the Desert World, Pirate's Ocean, and the Culprit Caverns, and Volcanic Pools, and Space Case, and even with the forms of Sinking Swamp, as well as the forms of Ultra Heaven, and there are a couple of mini-games here now as well, that also managed to take down the forms of the original musical track, for licensing reasons yet again. Well, the only time exception for that particular music has not been replaced at all is Smooth Sherbet, the best song in the game. So, relatively speaking, everything else will become to expect when it comes to comparing the musical track from the original Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz to the forms of the HD remastered version of the game for multiple platforms. So, anyway, yeah, let's get into the forms of today's topic at this point, and that's what it appears to be for the fact that, well, today's date, of course, there is the 27th of December today, in some cases in 2024 today, and I believe, fundamentally speaking, this will actually be the final Friday day for the likes of the forms of 2024, because I can assure you for the fact that we've only got about, I would say, 5 more days left until we're about to be approaching onto the brand new year, 2025. So, as a result though, we still have no idea of when these specific news for gaming related things is about to be up, but I do know for certain for one thing in mind, about the fact that, like I've already established that before, that I've already pre-ordered Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, so that way I can able to enjoy that particular game again, except this time on a different system. So as a result though, and as far as I'm aware, is about the fact that, like I've already established that before, we are super looking forward to able to actually trying out the Cloud World for the likes of the forms of one of those extra videos coming up in terms of Donkey Kong Country Returns, or even just trying to do the HD version of Donkey Kong Country Returns, at least as far as I'm aware. Although, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Do you guys want me to tackle through the Donkey Kong Country Returns HD version for the Nintendo Switch as far as the full game again? Or if you really want able to stick with the forms of my suggestion, which appears to be the Cloud World specifically, let me know in the comments down below, because I would like to hear your thoughts. So anyway, which is especially noticeable concerning for the fact that, well, much like the forms of Super Monkey Ball, alongside with the forms of the Klonoa games, and he pretty much named the rest of it though. But obviously though, we are almost done with these specific franchises as far as Let's Plays are concerned, including with the forms of we still need to plan out Wario Land, the Shake Dimension at some point for next year, because God knows if Nintendo decide able to bring those franchises back for the sake of Wario Land, because we already know for certain for one thing that obviously though WarioWare is now officially more common than the forms of how it does it for Wario Land series of games, which I still have no idea why does Nintendo decide able to discontinue the actual Wario Land series of games next to the forms of, well, let's say Kid Icarus, alongside with the forms of Star Fox, and even with the forms of Chibi Robo. Well, I suppose no matter what though, it's pretty difficult to judge at this point, especially considering for the fact that, well, obviously though, we've already established that before, that it may look like that Nintendo is planning something huge for the sake of the forms of next year. Not to mention though, is about the fact that obviously though, like we've already established that before, that the Super Mario Bros. Franchise is about to be celebrating the 40th anniversary next year, so we can expect able to get a little bit more hyped about it in regards to the forms of trying to celebrate the Red Italian Plumber. So, anyways though, there's also another thing else that's worth noting for actually, is about the fact that I did recently manage to get myself not one, but 2 games digitally for the Nintendo Switch. And remember what some toys has mentioned about this before, ever since around, I would say 2 months ago for some time, that obviously though, do you know about the fact that with the Batman Arkham games, was originally going to be a combo pack, as in Batman Arkham Trilogy, for the Nintendo Switch, where you do get yourselves not only Batman Arkham Asylum as well as Arkham City, neither with Arkham Knight. Well, I'm happy to report about the fact I somehow managed able to get myself only 2 games, not 3 mind you, because as far as I'm aware, luckily though I can able to get those 2 games separately. Usually in digital formats, and those 2 games are Batman Arkham Asylum, just to give that game another chance, but this time I can play the game on the go on my glorious Nintendo Switch. And on top of all that stuff though, I also got myself Batman Arkham City, which, as far as I've heard about it anyway, that both Arkham Asylum, alongside with the forms of Batman Arkham City, might run very very well on the Nintendo Switch, especially concerning for the fact that both of those games did originally came out, not only for the likes of the PC version, but as well as the forms of, I would presumably speaking now, it did originally also came out on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. So my guess is about the fact that much like the forms of Sonic Generations, it doesn't have any flaws. Although the only time exception to this though is the forms of random pop-ups, alongside with the forms of some graphical issues. For the sake of the forms of both Arkham Asylum as well as Arkham City, but as far as I'm aware, Shadow the Hedgehog is having a really fun time playing these 2 games on the go now, especially, well, no need to worry about getting ourselves the PlayStation 3 version anymore, just because for whatever reason is that my PS3 seems to able to actually struggle with the actual component cable so far. Although it's fun enough as it is, like it still works just fine, but for whatever reason though, it's about the fact that it doesn't seem to able to register my TV sometimes, which I'm not exactly sure why what's causing it though, but usually relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that we have that particular Samsung TV for a very long time, but if it's completely busted, then we'll try to get ourselves a brand new TV, like, I don't know, the one that supports with 4K or something. Well, time will tell though, especially concerning for the fact that we still got a whole bunch of retro systems in our hands, so either way though, time will tell. So anyway, and it's also worth noting for too is about the fact that the reason why I somehow ignored Batman Arkham Knight for the Nintendo Switch, because as far as I'm aware, I've heard a lot of bad feelings about that port, mainly for the forms of not only technical hiccups, but as well as from that though, the frame rate chugs a lot, especially if you're trying to get into the Batmobile, you know, with the forms of the tank battles and all that stuff, and occasional racing tracks, you know, as well. Well, I definitely heard about the worst things about it in terms of the Switch version of Batman Arkham Knight, especially because it is graphically impressive for the PlayStation 4 alongside with Xbox One versions, because I'm sure enough though is about the fact that those 2 versions of Arkham Knight did manage to run very well on the PS4 version, as well as the forms of Xbox One, and heck, even with the forms of PlayStation 5, as far as the backwards compatibility is concerned, even with the forms of Xbox Series X even, thanks to the forms of backwards compatibility as well. But that's not the case for the Switch version, because as far as I did see the footage of it, my goodness, the frame rate sucks on the Switch version. Like, it cannot handle very well in terms of not only the game's physics engine, but as well as from that though, just pretty much everything else for that resides. And not to mention though, the graphics are a massive downgrade compared to the forms of how it does on the superior PS4 version, as well as the Xbox One version, for what I've noticed anyway. So, relatively speaking though, and not to mention though, it costs so much gigabytes in terms of the forms of how the game is going to be purchasable digitally. Like, you know how much gigabytes that will cost you if you do manage to able to get yourselves the digital version of Batman Arkham Knight for the Switch version? Well, it's gonna cost you 27 gigabytes unless if you want to include patch updates. So, yeah, that seems a bit too much for my liking, so I was able to take, you know what I'm talking about, Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City any day, because, like I said before, both of those games managed to play out very well on a glorious Nintendo Switch after all, so it makes it a little bit more obvious than ever, so... But, yeah, nothing else to add. And what's even better, though, is about the fact that I managed to able to get those two games in a quite of a cheap price. Like, it only cost me for about, I would say £8 each, so it's definitely a lot better than the forms of how it does it for originally a 20 quid game separately. So, at the very least, though, is about the fact that we are totally glad that we're able to actually got Batman games again, except this time on a different system. So, that seems pretty cool and everything, so, either way, so yeah, that pretty much does it for this stage. Okay, quick air right there, sorry about that folks. Now if you're probably wondering what's up with the actual score tally is actually a lot different than in forms of my first run. Well, obviously though, we've come across into yet another issue where after able to actually just try to deal with this yet another technical problems again when it comes to likely for capturing footage on my phone. Plus, it's clearly because no matter what though, if I see something a little bit odd about it, obviously though, I somehow fall off the stage. And luckily though, I can able to actually try to like, well, it's hard for me to explain, because I know for the fact it has been about quite a few hours ago since I actually have last played this game for sure. So anyway, although I was originally trying to able to get myself Lego City Undercover digitally for the Nintendo Switch, but I might try to save that for later, because as far as I've heard about it anyway, that Shantae Advanced Risky's Revolution is gonna be almost on its way, and maybe same applies with the forms of Croc Legend of the Gobbos remastered for the Nintendo Switch, but we shall see what happens during that time comes, because I already know for the fact that those two games in particular, it's gonna be coming in during at some point on the first quarter of 2025. It could be either be January, or February, or March, depending on the forms of the release schedule, so either way, time will tell at this point. So anyway, so as you can tell on screen is about the fact that yes indeed, about the fact that we're going to be choosing a different character, which appears to be Mimi. So overall though is about the fact that depending on what characters you're going to be using, obviously though they behave exactly the same, so there's no special abilities or anything else like that, or special attributes, depending on what characters you're going to be selecting from. So relatively speaking though, it plays pretty much standard way. So anyway, what I found is a little bit strange though is about the fact that every once in a while we can definitely hear some familiar sound effects from Super Monkey Ball 1 as well as Super Monkey Ball 2, and even with Super Monkey Ball Deluxe even. Like for instance, if you try to collect those bananas, if you hear enough correctly, if you try to collect the bananas if you couldn't tell, that's actually exactly the same sound effects as you hear from the good old Super Monkey Ball games, like Super Monkey Ball 1 all the way up to Super Monkey Ball Adventure, because as far as I'm aware, in Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz all the way up to Banana Rumble, for instance, though, the sound effects will be completely changed no matter what. So, yeah, that's as far as I was expecting. So, and also what I found a little bit weird about this game in particular is that for whatever reason, the bonus stage music does not play in this particular game so far, which I'm not exactly sure why that's been causing it to be exactly. Well, usually, relatively speaking, that's as far as I can try to describe it as far as I'm aware. So, anyway, there's also another thing else that's worth noting for it, is about the fact that we've already know about the fact that, you know, The Simpsons has been around for about 35 years, since 1989, all thanks to the films of the very first episode of the films of The Simpsons, which appears to be, I would say a Christmas episode. Well, mind you, about the fact it has been about quite a few weeks ago since I actually have last watched The Simpsons episodes, to be more specifically, because, well, straight to the point though is about the fact that I still have no idea of when the next movie is going to happen, which I highly doubt it, because as far as I'm aware though, they are still working on the most recent season at the time, and that's what appears to be season 36, so seems pretty crazy, doesn't it? And it's also worth noting for too, is about the fact that, well, at least to be more specifically, if you lived in Japan anyway, basically though, happy 25th anniversary of the game's release of Mario Party 2 for the Nintendo 64. And while looking back on it though, it is a massive improvement to me though, compared to the first Mario Party game. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still managed to enjoy Mario Party 1 even to this day, despite there are some archaic design choices, but I will still say that Mario Party 2 is easily the best Mario Party game, next to Mario Party 6, alongside with Mario Party Superstars, despite with the lack of content, and on top of that, with the most recent release of Super Mario Party Jamboree, despite with the forms of how broken and overpowered the Jamboree Buddy system can be. But that's for a discussion for a later time, because for now on though, we are busy playing through a singular game after all, and it's also, you know, as I mentioned this before, the final Let's Play we're going to be doing for 2024 before we move on to a new year. So, and thankfully though, it's going to be a lot more quicker than the forms of how it does it for the likes of Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure for the GameCube/PlayStation 2, because straight to the point though, sometimes though, a lot of exploration can tend to able to make things a little bit lengthy and longer. So relatively speaking though, as long as we don't able to come across into any trial and error situations, I mean, obviously though, the game will get a lot more difficult at this point when it comes to later stages to come, at least if you really want to go after every single bananas you do need to get, as well as from that though, when it comes to unlocking certain crown stages as far as I'm aware. I mean, we shall see what happens in due time. So, and also, what I found was very fascinating to me though, is that during the course of in Las Vegas or something like that, it seems to be more specifically though, is that PlayStation has also celebrated its 30th anniversary when it comes to PlayStation, and it's going to take place in during the forms of in Vegas Sphere. So yeah, that's actually pretty interesting, especially concerning for the fact that, well, I haven't seen the full video experience of that particular Vegas Sphere when it comes to something relates to PlayStation's 30th anniversary in mind, but usually for its worth though, it's actually pretty cool and awesome at the same time. So either way though, there, yeah, that's as far as I can try to explain about the forms of, you know, today's topic at this point. I mean, obviously though, is about the fact that I would have liked able to explain some other details, like for instance though, with the forms of something else that's been happening so far in terms of Nintendo, and you pretty much named the rest of it though. But honestly folks, it's just about the fact that there's nothing else I can talk about at this point. I mean, again, we'll let Maxi will mention more about the forms of the final thoughts of 2024, just as soon as we're able to actually finish this game off first. And generally speaking, I was about the fact that at the very least though, we did manage to able to actually caught up at one point when it comes to going on to, you know, Super Monkey Ball Let's Plays for the time. So either way, so let's just go and go straight forward and make a leaps of faith right there, and we somehow made it to the goal. So how about that? And I believe we somehow unlocked yet another crown stage, and on top of that, the next world we're going to be hop into is Sinking Swamp. Okay, I'm assuming it's going to be something related to that particular, well, corporate caverns or anything else like that, but Either way though, we'll have to be able to discuss more about that, probably at some point in the later days to come, so... Oh jeez, this is where the level starts to get pretty tricky, and especially noticeable that we're now able to actually incorporate with those little spinny platforms. They have to do a very careful quick time succession, so as long as you were able to succeed, like I just did right there, and you probably not recommend trying to able to actually go as soon as that particular fast spinning platform decides to come into play, so... But either way, let's just wait for a moment, and it's all about timing as well. Okay, now we can go, and thank goodness I did not fall off immediately. So either way, Pirates Ocean is done. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell, and it seems to be more specifically though, we've now on to almost the halfway point of this game. So yeah, I told you this particular game is gonna go a lot quicker than I was expecting. So with that being said, folks, is that we get endings off this point right here. So join me tomorrow for more of Let's Play of Super Monkey Ball Sakura Edition. And that's what it appears to be for the fact that we're going on to the next world, and that is Sinking Swamp, based off of World 9 from Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz. So this will be interesting, so I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas!